let's move into our
It is
topic.
you.
Jake, tee us up on a
Yes.
topic here. I've talked long enough.
Okay. Well, it came up naturally, which is just lucky for me because I don't have lots of extra brain cells left over for some of my favorite stuff like this pod after dealing with my kid. But luckily, dealing with my kid fed right into this. So he, as I said, he just turned 6, and he's a pretty smart kid. And being a game brain myself, and I'd like to say that he is too, although maybe it's a little too early to say. But we play a lot of games, and the issue of being a sore loser has definitely surfaced. And maybe it's age appropriate. I don't know. Obviously, nobody likes to lose, and that's its own thing. But when you're a little kid, it somehow maybe feels more, means more. And I had noticed that the last few times that he had lost, because and just step back, I'm not the kind of parent who just loses on purpose. Like that I don't do that. My parents didn't do that for me. When I played with my dad card games, it was like, well, beat me, play well. So I do that with him, and sometimes he loses. And I had noticed that he started to have some serious, like, emotional responses. And so I decided to address with him, just in not one we were playing, but just me and him as a conversation when I thought he was in the right mood, the idea of like fair play and being a gracious winner and a gracious loser, as opposed to a sore winner or a sore loser. And we had a really interesting conversation about it. I mean, it was mostly one-sided. I was, imparting to him my ideas on this. And so when Maddie said, what should our topic be? It flowed very nicely, since, when you play games with your friends, how you play them really matters. And so I could lay out for you all out there basically what I laid out for him, and hopefully it will make as much sense to you guys as it did to him, because I think he really picked it up.
That's great.
I basically started. Yeah, I basically started, and again, I'm personally maybe I'm an overthinker, I don't know, but I really did think about it the night before I mentioned it to him, and I sort of had my thoughts in order when I brought it to him, so that I wasn't just floundering. But this is basically how I broke it down. All right. So I said, we as human beings, we're a group species, right? Nobody does this on their own. You can't survive. That's not how it works. We live in communities, we live in society, and it's all about interacting and how we behave. Behavior is a big thing in our house, about like good behavior and how we treat people and what we say and what we do. So I started with that idea, and he seemed pretty chill with that. And I explained that a child's first group that they experience is their family, and that's their first safe space to like learn what's right and what's wrong, so that when they go out into the world, they're not a crazy person who doesn't know how to interact with others. And he seemed pretty cool with that too. And I explained to him how like a lot of our house rules are really just like, I don't make this stuff up. They're modeled on the laws of our land, that we're getting you ready so that when you go out there, you know what's going to be expected of you. He was cool with that. Right. And then I explained how like the next safe place is the classroom. That's the second place where a kid gets to experience competition. And it might not be organized competition. It might just be, I want this, you want that. What happens next? It's the same toy kind of thing. And he seemed even pretty cool with that. And then I tried to transition into my one main idea, which is that it's about the playing. It's about the experience that you are creating with your opponent. That, when you use fair play, which is really all about honesty and generosity and being able to experience it other than your own point of view, it sort of transforms competition into cooperation. Obviously, nobody wants to lose. And I would never teach my kid that, it's okay to be like a loser. You always want to win. You always want to do your best and bring your best to the experience. But if you can wrap your mind around that the experience itself is the goal, not the end of the game being the goal, then you see that in fact what you've done is you've co-created this experience. And that's just straight cooperation. And those skills are going to be very valuable when you go out into the real world, because you're going to be interacting with people where you might think they're your opponents, but really they're just other people who also are just trying to live their life and have a good time. And he seemed to get that. He asked me a couple of questions, and I sort of I sort of made him understand that it's about the experience and not the win. And a couple of the ways that I think he really fully got it. I mean, I used catchphrases like, journey, not the destination, but that seemed to kind of go over his head. So I did a little would you rather with him, because that's a game he hilariously likes to bring to me. And some of his examples are the most ridiculous thing, like, would you rather eat a peanut butter or like drown in the ocean? It's crazy. But anyway, so I did a would you rather, and I was like, would you rather play and maybe win or lose, or not play at all and just be told you won? And he thought about that for a second, and he was like, no, I want to play the game. I don't want to like just know what happened. There'd be no point. And I was pretty happy that he picked that up. And yeah, I mean, I tried to build to that idea that it's not about just the outcome. Like, there's no sports fans who just want to look at the scores. They want to experience the play.
Right.
And I gave him another one. I said, would you rather have fun playing and maybe win or lose, but know that you can have more fun playing again? Or would you rather play, but definitely win, but never play again? And he had to think about that for a second. And he said, no, of course, I would rather take the chance and be able to play more. And I said, well, then, so there you see it, that it is the playing that is the valuable thing. It's not the end result that is more valuable. And I think he got that. And I kind of broke down, I transitioned from there into, okay, so how can we best co-create the experience, right? How do we make it fun? Because that's what playing a game is all about. And when we talk about fair play, we want it to be fun, right? These rules and the way we behave about this, I tried to make it as simplified as possible. So I was like, all right, let's talk about being a sore winner. And I said, if you win a game and you gloat about it in the person's face and you brag, well, you're discouraging further play, because that person's not going to want to play with you again. I mean, when you make the loser feel bad, all they're going to remember is that you're not fun to play with. And I think he understood that pretty well. And then we got into being a sore loser. And I said, look, when you complain or say stuff like, you cheated, or it wasn't fair, or, something other than my performance would cause the outcome of why I lost, all you've basically done is make the winner's prize like a punishment. Because what do they get for winning is your bad mood. And then again, nobody's going to want to play with you after that. And I think he seemed to understand that. And then we sort of went over like, okay, well, conversely then, what makes a gracious winner or loser? And I tried to give him just some simple ideas of like, all right, let's say you win and you want to make the person feel good about losing. Obviously, nobody wants to lose, but there's a few things you can say. You can like compliment them on making a great game, on being a good challenge. You can praise their skill of how well they did. You could say, that was so fun. I can't wait to play with you again. Who knows, maybe you'll win next time. And in that way, you ingratiate yourself to them, and it makes them not feel bad about losing. It gets them excited about playing with you again. And then we talked about being a gracious loser, where you want the winner to feel good so that you can encourage further play. And you want to say something like, I enjoyed playing with you, and you really challenged me. You made me be a better player, which I then did a kind of little mini segue into trying to say, like, look, if you go up against somebody who's much better, because clearly I am much better. And I said this right to him. I'm like, look, when we play games, I'm not going to let you win. And I'm way better than you because I just have more experience. So when you're going up against someone who's better than you, that makes you a better player because it's challenging you to get to the next level. And you can always compliment a person for doing that. And that will make them want to play with you more. Because ultimately, what do we want to do is have the fun. Nobody wants to just consider themselves a winner but never play.
Right.
And I think most of this went pretty well. And it got me to thinking about how those categories of being either a sore or gracious winner or loser, they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, you find players who are very gracious winners and will not brag when they trounce you. But if they lose, they're a sore loser. They can't lose. Yeah. You're not going to be necessarily both. And they both take different kinds of practice. Because when you win, you're trying not to be overly happy about your own win to make the other person feel bad. But when you lose, you're trying to make yourself kind of not feel so bad about it so that the other person will want to play with you again. And it was interesting to see how he took it in, because I don't know if it will cement itself in his mind so that when he loses the next time, it'll be just having talked about it once enough for him to be like, all right, I lost, no big deal. Probably not. Probably it'll take a few more conversations to really cement it that it's about the journey, not the destination. But you find so many grown-ups who, just purely because maybe this idea wasn't really introduced at a young age, they don't have practice at these things. And no matter how intelligent they are or nice they are or clever or any of these things, when you enter into a competition, they kind of forget that they're really just cooperating to have a good time at this thing. And then it becomes very uncomfortable at the end. When you mentioned what would be a good topic, I was in the back of my mind thinking like, gee, how could this tie into like a bigger section of our world?
Yeah.
I started thinking about like probably the greatest example of a sore loser that I could think of. And obviously, I'm thinking of our soon to be last president. And I even explained that to my son. I was like, look, do you want a good example of someone who's a really bad loser? Look at the guy in charge right now.
Yeah.
He complains. He says you cheated. He doesn't care about the other player. He'll do whatever it takes to just win. It has nothing to do with the experience. It's totally detached. And it sets the worst example for so many people who look up to this person who's supposed to be like the pinnacle of, achievement to work for others. And it kind of blows my mind that is on the stage. It's sad to me. Like, I really wish there was, because, I look at sports and I'm not a big sports fan, but I got to say, it sets great examples the way these athletes teach a younger generation that it's about the game. It's not about the win or the lose. Do they all want to win? Of course. Nobody wants to lose. But they set this example of like, we're creating something that not only we enjoy doing, but millions of fans enjoy doing as well. They were just like watching that fair play. Nobody likes it when at the end somebody whines about losing or brags about winning. It's against our nature as a society. It doesn't make for good cooperation in all kinds of interactions, not just playing games, but like in the office or in a relationship or in a friendship. These tenets of how we treat other people, they carry through, in my opinion.
Well, first of all, I think I want to say something that I think every person listening is probably thinking right now, which is that you are a fantastic father, Jake. You are honestly like such a role model to me as a dad. You do such a fantastic job with Logan. You put so much love and thought into making him a good person. And he is a very lucky boy for having you as a dad.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
I wrote it down, so that's no, it was from the heart. And it's a really tough needle to thread, this concept, because there are two diametrically opposed concepts at play here. One, which is the game breaks unless both players are working to defeat the other.
Correct.
But the game also breaks if either one of those players is taking it too seriously or too emotionally or too intensely.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the game of chess is not a game if one player is just trying to spell their name with the pieces while the other one is trying to win. That's not. There's neither person is having fun. Then there's no game.
Absolutely brilliantly correct. You're right. If you're not bringing it your best game, then you're not respecting your opponent.
And often there's no, then it literally is no game. Like, I mean, if you're not attempting to effectively counter everything the other person is doing, then the experience breaks completely, entirely.
Absolutely correct. No, we don't want a group of people who are apathetic and don't care about how they play.
Right. But you're also saying get emotionally invested, but there's a limit, and there's and there is a safe space in this game, and that when the game is over, that space needs to have a closing and a finale to it, wherein we don't then carry our resentments or our negative feelings or even our extreme positive feelings in a way that will make the other player have a negative experience, as you said.
Absolutely correct. And I got to say, when I was watching the acceptance speech of Biden, one of the things that he had mentioned before, but that he really drove home, was that, while we were opponents, we're not enemies.
Yeah.
At game night, we're working our hardest to defeat the opponents in the game, but we're all friends. And we're doing it because we enjoy each other and our company, and that we enjoy the game itself, playing with each other. When the game is over, we're not angry at each other because we're friends.
Yeah.
And he said that very well as far as the national stage. He's like, all right, Republicans, Democrats, fine, but we're all just still people in this country, which couldn't have been more opposite to his opponent, where it's so divisive and so, you're bad. If you're against me, you're bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that when I was trying to tell Logan about like doing your best and how that is actually respect for the other person, you're like, they don't want you to do anything except your best because they're looking for the challenge same as you.
Right.
And I think he got that, although it's a little abstract to say, do your best to win, but be okay losing because the playing is the thing. Right? The experience is the thing. I mean, when we watch a movie and it's over at the end and the good guy wins and the bad guy loses, like you still enjoyed the movie. If I just said the ending of the movie without watching it, there'd be no point.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't, I feel like I think a lot about my relationship with winning and losing, and playing board games has really, forced me to do that. I think I have a competitive side of me that I don't like, and that I try to
Mm-hmm.
suppress, and that I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, that I sort of associate with, negativity. Um,
Yeah, and
and
aggression, I'd imagine as well.
yeah, and also like, it's just I was an only child. I didn't have a lot of people to play with, and I remember as a kid having experiences playing games with people and having them and seeing, and I'm very emotionally connected to other people's state of minds, and so
Yeah, you
I'm
are.
very sensitive to if somebody is not having fun, it affects me. And I remember playing games with people and feeling like they were unhappy because they weren't winning, and
Mm-hmm.
then me wanting them to win so that they'd play with me again.
Right.
And that was then my that was it was much more important to me that the experience ends with that person wanting to play with me again, because I was pretty lonely as a kid.
Yeah,
Didn't have
sure. Well,
siblings.
lonely or not, that's a totally normal reaction. Of course, the playing is the thing.
Right. So but that, I think that sort of drove a lot of my, like, I'm like, even now, like when we play with people in our group, I often, like, I feel affected when I feel like people are getting frustrated, or if the teach didn't go
Mm-hmm.
well and people are
Mm-hmm.
finding it a little too obtuse, or if they're losing and they wish they were winning. And I have a tendency, if we have players, if I'm playing with somebody and I'm really feeling that from them, I have a tendency to not want to play with them again. And we don't
I
have
understand.
somebody in our group who makes me feel that way, because I have tailored our group over the last 10
Yeah.
years to not have that vibe. I don't want to sit down and be stressed out because I
Yeah.
feel smoke coming
That
out of
if you
somebody's ears
win, your
across the table.
reward is their bad feelings.
Exactly. Or yeah, it's like, to me, it's so much more important that everybody is happy and having fun and having a positive experience. Now, that being said, I have been a salty little boy when I have lost games and I'm not proud of it. And I've had moments where, like, I'm not in a good mood afterwards. And I
Yeah.
definitely can tell that is probably affecting other people. There are times when I, like, just emotionally disconnect from a game because I'm losing. And I'm just like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I don't like it. It's a bad feeling.
Yep.
I already had a
Yep.
bad day. I feel bad right now. This is not how I wanted my night to go. Like, and like, but I
Sure.
think these games, of 10 years in this hobby now, like, I've had a lot of experience feeling that feeling now. And I've had some experience feeling winning, and I've had some experience feeling winning and feeling other players feel bad. I've had a lot more experience losing. And we have very gracious players in our group. So I very rarely, am watching somebody
Yeah.
boast or anything and having that
Yeah.
negative
Yeah.
experience. But yeah, I think I've really learned to um, really get what I want out of the experience, which is my main goal when I play is to become a better player in general at the hobby and in all games, but really to keep the experience going, to play again.
That's right. To enjoy the experience with friends.
Yeah.
For me, that makes so much sense. I mean, I think you said that really well. For me, when I was growing up, my dad was the fierce competitor. And my mom didn't want to play any game because she would say, if I win, I'll feel so bad when they lose. Like I'm too sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that really those two, opposite forces really bounce in my mind. And I hate to lose. I hate it. But also, I don't like the feeling when somebody else feels bad if I win. And I found a way. I mean, honestly, in this game group, I think it's pretty common knowledge that I'm not a huge winner when it comes to these games. I often lose or take last, or however you want to call it. But I found that it really doesn't bother me because of how much fun I have playing. I learn so much about a new game. And I agree that our group has a huge amount of gracious winners and some who aren't the best losers, let's say.
Yeah.
But even then, no terrible sore losers because
Yeah.
it wouldn't be fun. But that even many losses in a row, it doesn't really bother me because I just enjoy the experience so much. And I know it's all for fun. You know what I mean? There's nothing really on the line other than enjoying it. And as long as I know I've done my best, then that's enough for me. And I think our gaming group has really allowed me to hone that.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's okay to feel bad when you lose. Like
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
okay. Like it's not an
Absolutely.
emotion to be completely repressed. Like you were striving for something and you did not achieve the goal that you wanted for yourself. Um,
Right.
what's not okay though, is to blame other people for your loss, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Um, but it's okay to be upset. We've even had people in our group, and I think I've done this before, where at next week's game night, you show up and you like pull someone aside, and you're like, "Hey, I don't know if this was happening for you at all, but afterwards, I felt bad that I was pretty bummed about the loss, and I sure hope that it didn't make you feel bad,
Mm-hmm.
or like
Mm-hmm.
I was not totally proud of my behavior by the end of that game.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
I
look,
just want you to know that
nobody's
I,
perfect.
I was introspective about it for the week and it was weighing on me. I think
Yeah.
those are important follow-ups if, to help create a really safe space for people to even have negative experiences like that.
Absolutely. Being able to even say that says so much about you. I mean, there's some people who couldn't get it up to say something like, hey, I was thinking about how I was feeling. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a whole other category.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree. I wouldn't want anyone's takeaway from this to be like, it's totally chill to lose. That is
Yeah.
not what I mean.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And,
you need to do your best and try to win every time to honor the experience and also yourself and your opponents, because then when you win, you know you've earned it, and when you lose, you know you couldn't have done any more than you could. I mean, you've done your best, and no one can ask more of that. You win some, you lose some, and being cool with the outcome and appreciating that it's the experience itself has to trump, excuse the expression, the outcome. It
yeah.
just has to. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy playing games in your life.
Yeah. And board games have been a fantastic way to get practice losing.
Correct.
I think everyone should have practice losing. And board games are not real life. They are,
Mm-hmm.
but there is very little difference in terms of your emotional experience in a simulation or in the real thing. And I think board
I'd go
games
so far as to say there's zero difference,
there
except
often
for the
is.
meta understanding
I
that
think
one
Paul. I
isn't
think
real.
Paul would say there's zero. I think that's one
I
thing we've
I
talked
agree with
about
Paul,
before. Yeah, I think you
100%. And
go
by the
through
way,
the
it
same
couldn't be more
experience. Yeah,
important. Yeah, it couldn't be more important to do this when you're a child. I mean, that's the reason kids play games.
yeah.
One of the reasons is so that they can experience loss. I remember it wasn't so long ago. My nephew, he was doing t-ball, which is kind of like baseball but without losing, essentially, if I understand it right.
Well,
And I had to take him
without
one
missing
time.
swings as much. Yeah,
Yeah, Yeah, and I was watching this whole thing, and it really like struck me hard. I had to think about it for like a whole week, where it just felt like they're not. That's not good. You can't teach the idea that just we're all winners. That it's okay. That it's all equal. We're all winners. There's no lesson there. That's not preparing a person to go out into the reality of you're not always going to win,
Yeah.
no matter how hard you try your best. So
Oh, God.
that's
Don't
important.
say participation trophy.
Oh my God.
Then we are a conservative podcast if you say that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, get experience losing. Our soon to be former president should have had has had quite a bit experience losing, and you would think he would have had
Yeah,
learned how to do it by now because he is the biggest loser in the
the
history of man.
biggest loser.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.